Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar series today. My name is Tyson Mavar, one of the AT&T focused retirement advisors for the retirement group. And on today's webinar series, we're going to cover some interesting changes that have happened to the AT&T medical benefits and talk a lot about healthcare costs in general for retirees. Many people on today's webinar may not even have access to any subsidies from AT&T when they retire, depending on when you left the company. So we'll talk about some of the important things to remember when it comes to benefits available from AT&T, and also options, especially for those that leave the company and lose healthcare benefits prior to age 65 or prior to becoming eligible for Medicare benefits in today's webinar presentation. Those of you who aren't as familiar with our company, the Retirement Group is an independent financial planning organization that specializes in helping corporate employees plan for and transition into a successful retirement. We manage retirement assets for corporate employees, going back over 30 years with AT&T employees. We have many clients from AT&T and experience in working with people on their benefits plans to maximize what they walk away from the company with, minimize their risk of taxes eating up retirement benefits, a risk of inflation, risk of poor investment decisions, creating risk of running out of money in retirement. That's our ultimate hope at the Retirement Group, is to help people minimize their risk of permanent loss of capital and outliving their retirement assets in general. We are not affiliated with AT&T, nor are we endorsed by AT&T, but we happen to have many clients from AT&T and have been working with folks from AT&T for, like I mentioned earlier, about 30 years now. Whether or not you are a client of ours, we have a whole host of complimentary services that we encourage you to take advantage of, especially if you've not done so yet. The cash flow analysis is where we can put together a plan for you, looking at your numbers currently, seeing if you're on track to meet your goals in retirement. If you're not on track, seeing how to get back on track, and also starting to identify what are some ways that we can maximize our benefits while we're working, whether it's changing the way that we're saving in the plan, changing our investments in the 401k, taking advantage of some of the benefits that exist while you're still working at AT&T, and then ultimately putting together a plan that will allow you to have confidence that you're not going to run out of money and that you're going to have the best retirement experience possible because you did a little bit of work ahead of time to maximize what you have to work with in retirement. If you haven't met with us, if you've never done a cash flow analysis, or if it's been a while since we've updated your plan, please take some time to update your numbers. Spend a few minutes with myself or one of our AT&T focused advisors to understand all the benefits you have available and put that plan together. It's at no cost to you. It's a complimentary service, and it usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes over the phone to gather what we need to put that together to update your plan. So let us know if you'd like to do that, if you'd like to spend some time with us. And then we also have a LinkedIn page where we publish this as well as many other live webinars, so you can go through some of the topics that are of most interest to you. This QR code here on the slide will take you to our LinkedIn page where you can follow us or create an account if you don't yet have a LinkedIn account. Now, we hear many concerns from our folks from AT&T, our clients that are approaching retirement and those also that are in retirement. And the two biggest concerns that we hear about, A, is running out of money in retirement, not having enough assets to live the life that you want to live comfortably in retirement. But the second biggest concern, which actually plays into the first concern, is healthcare costs in retirement. One of the reasons that people are concerned about running out of money, and one of the reasons some people actually do run out of money in retirement, is because of out-of-control healthcare costs, or the role that healthcare costs play in a retirement budget. So today we're going to talk about some of the changes in costs, what we've seen in the last few years, some of the changes to the AT&T benefits and the subsidies that they offer, and some alternatives that you might want to consider to minimize these costs and keep as much of your money in retirement for the other more fun things in retirement: travel, entertainment, taking care of loved ones, whatever your values might be in retirement. You want to make sure you have as much money as possible for those things, so it's not getting eaten up in taxes or healthcare costs as much as possible. Now, they made some changes. Many of you, if you're still working at AT&T, will not even have a subsidy available to you for health care expenses when you leave AT&T. Non-management employees have a little bit more protections from the unions. Managers, you had to leave the company by the end of 2020 to lock in a subsidy that's associated with post age 65 health insurance expenses. It used to be that AT&T would cover your health insurance expenses and give you what's called a health reimbursement account to go toward your Medicare supplement costs. Well, not only do they not do that anymore unless you retired by the end of 2020, but they're also changing what that means to you if you did retire by 2020 as a manager, or if you are a non-management employee who still qualifies for these events because of the union protections that they offer to union employees. So essentially what's happening is they are changing from traditional Medicare, where you have parts A, B, D, and a supplement in most cases, a Medicare supplement. They're changing from giving a health reimbursement account as money toward your Medicare supplement costs to a Medicare Advantage plan where everything is included together. Your Medicare supplement is grouped in with your traditional Medicare. Some people have said that, in my experience, they really like the Medicare Advantage options and price points. I've had others, though, that really dislike Medicare Advantage plans and would never even go onto one, even if that's what was required to get a subsidy from AT&T. So we'll break that down in a little bit, the differences between the two. But this is happening in 2024. So for next year's health insurance, you might want to prepare for this change if you are already on Medicare or if you are approaching age 65 and are no longer working at AT&T. So first, let's talk about healthcare costs and what's going on right now. Most people underestimate their health insurance costs in retirement. Average American thinks healthcare is only going to cost them $41,000 over their lifetime, statistically. This is a $274,000 shortfall on the reality of healthcare costs in retirement. Turns out that a 65-year-old couple retiring today can expect healthcare costs of about $315,000 in today's dollars during their retirement, and anticipated 5% annual increases to health insurance costs because of rising cost of health. Drug prices increased recently by 5.6%, and pharmaceutical companies raised list prices of 983 prescription drugs for arthritis, cancer, and many other commonly used prescription drugs for retirees. Before you turn 65, if you are leaving AT&T or have left AT&T prior to qualifying for Medicare, there are some alternatives we strongly encourage people at least consider and shop around to see what costs are going to, how they're going to compare from plan to plan. AT&T still has a group plan option that is not subsidized, but depending on which option you pick, it might be $700 to $1,200 per month for a retiree that doesn't qualify for the subsidy, or basically managers that didn't leave payroll by the end of 2021. Cobra is still an option, but there's only a limited amount of time you can stay on Cobra, and it is pretty expensive. It's possible if you are married, you may want to consider your spouse's plan if he or she is still working or may even have a retiree plan available. I've seen people be surprised about this option, considering most of my clients that worked for AT&T, both husband and wife were on the plan while they were working at AT&T. But now that AT&T's benefits are becoming more restrictive as far as health insurance benefits go, this is something that you may want to consider looking at, or it may even be looking at another job, whether it's you leaving AT&T and taking another job that offers health insurance, or maybe even encouraging your spouse to either look for a job that has health insurance available, or looking at their current options available through their current employee if they are working. There's also a lot of options available through the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. This is also known as through healthcare.gov. There may be some benefits and maybe some cost reductions if you can find a plan that fits your needs through the Affordable Care Act. I'm going to zoom into this ACA, the Affordable Care Act alternative slide here so we can look at this a little bit closer. Here we go. All right, Affordable Care Act. The state marketplace, as it's also referred to, 87% of marketplace enrollees qualify for some kind of financial help on their premiums. So if you qualify, that could be a reason that you choose that plan. You can't be denied for pre-existing condition, very valuable to some. The lower your AGI, the lower health insurance premiums can become. Enrollment periods are typical enrollment periods, but there's also a special enrollment period for life events such as leaving your employment or losing coverage, which is the big one for most people that we work with at AT&T. And there's a variety of different plan options: bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and they also have options for HMO and PPO through the Affordable Care Act. It's critical you run a cash flow analysis to understand what your retirement plan looks like given your projected expenses. This is also going to help us to uncover some potential future problems. The biggest one being running out of money too early, but also areas where you could maybe be a little bit more tax efficient on how you're saving now, how you're investing now, how you distribute your assets after you leave AT&T and start needing money from your retirement benefits. And it's also going to help us to determine where you stand and what kind of changes are going to happen with your healthcare costs. Some other areas you may want to consider, whether it's saving more now, maybe working a little bit longer than you originally planned, or maybe cutting some other expenses out of your budget to account for the costs of insurance that may only be for a few years if it's bridging the gap between when you leave AT&T and when you qualify for Medicare. But it may be for many years, and it also depends on who is reliant on these benefits. It might not just be you. Now, Medicare is still very good. Many of you have been paying into Medicare your entire career, and it becomes a benefit once you reach 65, one of the benefits of getting older. Premiums are lower for almost everyone once you turn 65 and go on to Medicare. There are better benefits in almost every scenario, and your expenses, your healthcare expenses at least, are guaranteed. 80% of these expenses are going to be covered. The enrollment period is a 7-month period around your 65th birthday. So 3 months prior to your birth month, going all the way to 3 months after your birth month. This is where you want to sign up for Medicare. Even if you still are working, we encourage people to call and sign up for at least Part A, which is the one that has free premiums. There's no cost to the premiums. And it will just become secondary until you leave payroll. The reason that you want to do this, or at least consider doing this, is because there are penalties on your Part B premiums if you don't sign up during this enrollment period around your 65th birthday. So make sure at that time you're at least looking into Medicare, your options, and even if you are still working and have benefits, you still want to start looking into this. So I'm going to zoom in here. Let's look at the differences between traditional Medicare supplement, also known as Medigap. This is what AT&T is currently subsidizing for retirees, at least those retirees that qualify. And the new plan, which is going to be a Medicare Advantage plan, also known as Part C. So for Medicare supplement, you got to keep your own Medicare. Part A, B, and D, which is effectively the same throughout the country, although the costs can change depending on your income, which we'll talk about in a bit here. You can choose your own doctors, big benefit for a lot of people. There are higher premiums, but no copays, which also can be a benefit for a lot of people. Average cost typically $90 to $200 a month. No referrals necessary to a specialist. This is a huge benefit to some people. Some routine services aren't covered, such as vision and hearing. You're covered anywhere in the U.S., a very big benefit, especially for those that travel a lot. And it's guaranteed renewable, meaning that benefits will never change. Medicare Advantage plans, on the other hand, you forfeit original Medicare. You don't have Part A, B, and D. You just have a Medicare Advantage that includes what comes with those, as well as a Medicare supplement plan. You're restricted to in-network doctors, a big disadvantage for some. A little bit lower premiums, but there are copays. Typically $0 to $100 a month, depending on the plan that you have. You might need a referral to a specialist. may include additional benefits related to vision, hearing, and even fitness. Emergency services are only outside of the service area, only emergency services outside of your service area, and benefits might change annually. So advantages and disadvantages. I've heard a lot of people like their Medicare Advantage plan. One of the reasons being that it's going to be subsidized by AT&T next year. Although I know already many of my clients that are going to opt to continue on with traditional Medicare, not get the subsidy, although you're not going to get that health reimbursement account anymore, so your costs are definitely going to go up for those folks that opt out. Now, we get a lot of questions from our clients about IRMA, income-related Medicare adjustment amount. This has to do with how much you pay for Medicare based on your income. So, for this year, 2023, if you file your taxes jointly and your earnings are more than $194,000 a year, or for an individual more than $97,000 a year, you're going to pay an additional premium for your Medicare Part B and D premiums, the monthly cost of Medicare insurance. How this is observed is they look back 2 years prior to the year that they are testing. So for this year, 2023, they're going to look at your income for 2021, your tax return, and if your income is above this threshold, you're going to have most likely some additional costs on top of normal monthly costs associated with Medicare premiums. Now, it's possible that you can prove if you had a large reduction in your income. For most people, that's because they retired, but there's other reasons that might exist, that you are overpaying, that they're charging you too much for premiums. And this can be settled in many cases by calling Social Security Administration and turning in a tax return or some other document that shows your reduction in income or shows that they are not assessing your premiums correctly because of a change in income. And we've seen many people successful in reducing their Medicare premiums. It's also helpful to know that if you did have 1 or 2 really high income years, maybe it was toward the end of your career, as you get close to age 65, you may only have this additional premium for a short period of time until your lower income gets adjusted into this calculation and your premiums drop as a result. We went through an example here. We have Bob and Jane. Bob is on Medicare. Jane is 62. Their total income was $180,000. Let me see if I can figure out how to zoom this in. Here we go. Okay, so Bob's total health insurance is going to be $304.60 per month. He enrolls in traditional Medicare and has a supplement plan and a Part D drug plan. Part A doesn't cost him anything because he paid in for more than 10 years. His Part B, because his income was below the threshold, him and Jane's income specifically was below the threshold, only $170 a month roughly. Medicare supplement plan cost $127 a month, and his Part D drug plan was only $750 a month. Now, Jane is not qualified yet for Medicare, so she's going to be on this silver plan through Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's a PPO plan, and her costs are substantially more than Bob's at $1,200 a month. Of course, once she turns 65, she's going to go on to Medicare and have a significant reduction in her total expenses. Total family insurance premium, $1,504.60 per month, this year at least, for Bob and Jane. Now, let's go through these IRMA premiums for those of you that are getting close to the thresholds. We have for single filers, like we mentioned, $97 individual, $194,000 or less joint. It's for 2023, $164.90 per month. If you make over that threshold, but below $123,000 individual or $246,000 joint, look at the premiums. They go up almost $90 a month. It looks like $86 a month roughly. So pretty big increase in monthly premiums for not staying below that threshold. And the higher your income goes, the higher your premiums go. All the way up to, on the very top end, $560 a month if you made over $750,000 joint or $500,000 as an individual. Now, where we've seen a lot of financial advisors may give great advice on investments, and we we've actually done this with our clients, do something called a Roth conversion, where we encourage our client to take on more income in a given year. This can throw them into a higher IRMA bracket, and you want to be at least aware of this when you're deciding on how much income to take in a given year, whether it's how much you're pulling from your IRA, how much you're converting to a Roth IRA, how much you're making from your job, although typically we recommend make as much money as you possibly can if you're negotiating on a job, whether it's at AT&T or elsewhere. But keeping these thresholds in mind can save you thousands of dollars in retirement based on different strategies that you're implementing in your retirement plan. Now, there's also been some big increases, and some states have been affected recently more than others. A 40-year-old on a silver plan, which is, as it turns out, the most common plan, in the marketplace is going to pay about $560 per month for insurance. This is, for instance, somebody who left AT&T and is getting insurance privately. That was a 4% increase year over year. In some states, however, you can see Georgia, Colorado, Wyoming, Alaska, New Mexico, substantially higher increases. Georgia was over 20% increase on costs in that state. And you look at a couple other states, Wyoming and Alaska, their average insurance cost per month, $764 and $715. That's well above the national average. Now, coincidentally, those are 2 of the 7 states that don't tax income, and maybe there's some correlation there. A little bit of give and take, but it's something you may want to consider in terms of choosing where you retire as well, the cost of insurance. And I've seen some people actually leave the United States entirely based on being able to find a lower cost of living elsewhere. You definitely want to put that into your plan if that's even a consideration, comparing maybe retiring in Texas versus California, or retiring in Costa Rica versus the United States. All of this can be modeled, and we can show you what the delta is in terms of how much extra money you have given some assumptions about taxes, inflation, and things like cost of living. Now, Medicare Part A, for most people, there's not going to be a premium on Part A as long as you paid into Medicare for 10 years. You were taxed FICA taxes throughout your career. But there are some other costs that we want to look at. So hospital deductible, we'll just go down the 2023 column here, $1,600 deductible to be met before coverage, 3% increase year over year. Co-insurance for hospital stays, days 61 through 90 is $400, which is also a 3% increase. Beyond 90 days is $800. Skilled nursing facility, days 21 through 100 is $200, less than the hospital. A monthly rate for those that did not pay into Medicare at all, or for less than 30 quarters at least, it's going to be $506 per month. Only $278 per month if you had 30 to 39 quarters, and no cost per month if you had 40 quarters or more for Medicare Part A. Now, most people that we've ran into, not just our clients, but people in general that leave AT&T, work with a financial advisor when they leave the company for assistance managing their 401k plan, usually at least. In many cases, helping manage the pension if they took it as a lump sum, managing other assets that they may have accumulated over time, helping with the decision-making process in terms of making sure they're not overspending, making sure they're putting together a tax-efficient distribution strategy, not overpaying in taxes, and avoiding any tax penalties whenever possible. Help with asset allocation. There was a study done by Vanguard several years ago that was actually redone by Russell. It was a study about what's the actual value of a financial advisor to an individual. And every financial advisor is going to have a different approach and probably have a different value add or a value proposition to their clients. So it's important to meet with many, in our opinion at least, to see who the best fit is for you. Maybe even do a test run account before retirement to see if it's a good fit, and have them manage a small amount of your money before you have a bigger sum of money to manage. Interestingly enough, though, the largest value add, and what both of these studies came up with, is that an advisor is worth about 4% a year. I don't know anybody who would be willing to pay 4% of assets under management per year, but that's what both of these studies agreed upon, was that what a financial advisor, or at least a good financial advisor, is adding is about 4% a year in value. Interestingly, the biggest value add, and this is where the studies differed a little bit, but they were pretty much right on the mark. The Vanguard said that the biggest value add is something that's called behavioral coaching. So this is like here in 2022 and 2023, we had a pretty volatile market. Stocks lost quite a bit of value in 2022. 2023 was off to a bit of a tumultuous start with some regional banks going out of business. 2020 was another example when behavioral coaching I personally found very helpful to clients, which was back when we found out about COVID-19. When there's a lot of bad news in the economy, in the stock market, when consumer confidence is low, this is oftentimes when individual investors make the biggest mistakes, some of them being irrevocable mistakes that can absolutely decimate a retirement plan. Job of a good financial advisor is to make sure that you are investing for the long run, that you're picking good assets for your plan, that you're allocating those assets appropriately based on your risk tolerance, your cash flow need, your time horizon, and some other factors. Making sure that you are not panicking when your stocks lose value and selling your stocks at the worst time possible. Also making sure you're not being too aggressive when there's a lot of good news available, because oftentimes that's when stocks are expensive and may want to be sold to capitalize on gains. Not everybody needs a financial advisor, but if there's any sliver of a possibility you might find value in working with a financial advisor, now is the time to be evaluating services that are available to you. Don't wait to the last minute. Far too often we are approached by folks when they got surplus from the company, or interest rates are going up, their lump sum's going down, and they need to make a decision whether to leave the company within the next 2 months. You never want to make a big life decision under duress, so put the plan together before you are ready to retire from the company. And the other benefit of that, you can also probably find some ways that you can improve your position to retire, maybe be able to retire sooner, retire with a larger monthly income, because of some changes that you made, some small pivots here and there to how you're saving, how you're investing before retirement, the tax efficiency of your strategy, just to give you a better retirement experience. And we have a lot of complimentary services available to anybody that works at AT&T and is willing to spend some time with us. We're delighted to spend some time with you on a complimentary basis. If you're interested in talking to us, whether you have some questions or want us to put together that retirement cash flow analysis I mentioned, you can email us at info@theretirementgroup.com. You can call us at the home office at 800-900-5867. You can take a picture of this QR code to get on one of our financial advisors' calendars, and you can also follow us on LinkedIn to keep up with changes going on in the tax code related to retirement accounts, investment strategies for retirees, and specifically the AT&T benefits options and changes happening to AT&T employees' benefits to help you prepare better for retirement and just have a better retirement experience once the time comes. We do have some questions that came up this week, so we're going to go through a few of these questions. The first question, what about my disabled son? Will he still get benefits under the new AT&T plan in 2024? That's a tricky one. It's going to depend on some variables there. If you are on Medicare already, and all that's happening is you're changing from the old health reimbursement account, traditional Medicare, to the new Medicare Advantage plan, there's nothing that I can think of that would change for this person, your son's ability to qualify for benefits. Now, there may be some other benefits that we want to talk about, so I encourage you to call into the office and we'll talk to you about your son's disability, what types of benefits he's been qualifying for, and any other issues that we can consider. But based on this change from the old plan to the new plan, there's nothing that would disqualify your particular son, but we would want to know more about his situation before we said for sure. Question 2, if AT&T takes away the HRA, how will I afford my out-of-pocket costs? It's a good question. We talked about some of the differences between the old plan and the new plan. It's possible that you could actually see a reduction in your costs by changing to the new Medicare Advantage plan, like we saw with the lower premiums. But it's also possible, depending on what types of services you need, what types of prescription drugs you might need, specialists that you may be talking to, that you may want to change your plans a little bit because you're going to have higher out-of-pocket expenses potentially. best advice I would have is just run a cash flow analysis so we can figure how you might be able to create a more affordable strategy if you are seeing higher healthcare costs as a result of these changes. Question 3, does my Social Security pay for Medicare? I can go over the Part B withholding and options on others. I believe what this person is asking, whether or not you can deduct your Medicare costs from your Social Security benefits, and yes, you can. Although it's not necessarily the case. There's many people that are on Medicare and not yet collecting Social Security, in which case those Medicare premiums will come, you can deduct them directly from your bank account or write a check every month. If you are on Medicare, you're likely on Part B or an Advantage plan, and you can deduct those out of your Social Security benefits. You may have a premium on your Part B premiums. You might have an additional enhancement based on your income 2 years ago that we want to look at as well. But Social Security doesn't necessarily pay for Medicare, especially if you're not collecting yet benefits. Question 4, if I retire before 65, do I have to wait until open enrollment to use the healthcare exchange? If I retire before 65. No. If you leave AT&T prior to 65 and as a result don't yet qualify for Medicare, you would probably want to at least consider reaching out to the healthcare exchange to look at your alternative options. You might find the best option available through the healthcare exchange, and that especially becomes relevant when somebody leaves AT&T and doesn't either like the cost of the plan or doesn't like the plan available to them through AT&T, especially if they don't qualify for the AT&T subsidy. All right, last question. My current advisor helped me with a big Roth conversion but didn't tell me about the higher Medicare premiums. Will they be higher forever? Good question. So, like we talked about, doing a Roth conversion is great for getting pre-tax money into an after-tax bucket where it'll grow tax-free for the rest of your life. Usually the best years to do that is when you're already in a low tax bracket. But you want to be careful not to do too large of a conversion for two main reasons. One is because that could throw you into a higher tax bracket that year. So that's why it's usually good when you already have low income to consider a Roth conversion. But there's another threshold you want to watch out for, and that's that IRMA brackets that we mentioned earlier. The higher your income each year, the higher your Medicare premiums are going to be in 2 years when they look back to this year's income. Now, it's difficult to track this because of inflation adjustments. We don't even know what the thresholds are going to be in 2 years until November of next year. And when inflation is higher like it is now, those thresholds have, to our benefit, been going up at a higher rate, meaning we can have more income than we previously expected before going into that higher IRMA bracket. So my best advice to my clients on this is be conservative. Don't be too aggressive with your assumptions of what inflation is going to be, and what a lot of people will do is just use today's thresholds, not assume any inflation, try to stay under those thresholds to avoid that extra $60, $70, $100 a month in the year that they're looking back to this year's income. Roth conversions can throw you into that higher tax bracket, so be careful, folks. With that, we're going to wrap it up for today's workshop. I appreciate everybody joining today. If you have any specific questions, again, you can call us at the home office. You can email us at info@theretirementgroup.com. Our phone number is 800-900-5867. We're here to help folks take advantage of the complimentary services we have available, and if you're interested in doing some business with us, we're delighted to talk to you about how that can work and what goes into that, as well as the costs of having us manage a portion of your money before retirement or even after you retire from AT&T. Thanks again, folks. Have a great rest of your week. We hope to talk to you soon.